to say thank you to Dan Huerta, who does a lot of like little comic books and stuff like that. I'll post them on my stories. So you can actually follow him. But he sent me this the Manson versus Ramirez comic book cover. It is awesome. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. You're awesome. He sent me a couple of more. He sent me this one, John Bennett Ramsey. And then he has some really cool ones. Like this one's pretty freaking cool, like to put on the fridge. He's really talented. Definitely check him out. He's on my story. But yeah, awesome birthday gift. My birthday's next Friday, guys. If you want to hand over some stuff, let me know. Oh, wait, who we have here? View request. I got the burps today. What is going on? Who's joining with me? I think it's, is it? Mira Ever. Ever's my security guard, and he is awesome. He's a fan of the show. What do you want to say? You have a question, Ever? Or you just want to say?
It's haunted. It's haunted.
Huh?
It's haunted.
You're what?
I said it's haunted here.
Hell yeah, it's haunted. Do you have like a quick story to share before we start the show?
Each one, there was like right near the freight elevator, the door opened, the door opened wide open once. Well, like one night. And in the morning we found that it was open and this and that. So we're like, oh, probably somebody from one of the residents ended up, breaking the door and all that stuff. But we looked back on the tape and that thing was open. It opened by itself. So I was like, oh shit.
Now, were the ghosts trying to move in or move out?
Good question. Good question.
We're gonna have to summon some spirits on PH1 to see what the hell they want over there. Okay. Thank you, Ever, for popping in. Keep watching. Thank you for supporting. And we're back. All right, that was Ever. He's awesome. He protects me in my home every day. He does such a wonderful job. I love you, Ever. Thank you so much for watching and supporting always. I'm gonna go into reading mode real quick. Random pages. On my bed. My bed. Ooh, what is this? Interesting. If I were president, I'd make sure the people of this country had jobs and a place to live before worrying about other countries. My advice to children, be yourself, think positive, respect parents. What I don't like about people, phonies, people who don't keep their word. Religious thinking, my faith is in churches need to work on the family unit. What you're thinking now. Why the hell did I fill this out and who cares what I have to say? Your artistic interests. To please myself first and hope that expression is enjoyable to others. Art, as in life, is a journey, not a destination. If you don't like it, move on. Just like music to the ear, food to the smell, and taste. This was John Wayne Gacy interview. Wow. I'm going to do one more. This is weird. Random. This is really good. To relieve the minds of the parents, I mean, it's a small, very, very small thing, but I don't know what else I could do. At least I can do that because I created this horror, and it only makes sense that I do everything to put an end to it, a complete end to it. It's just a nightmare. Let's put it that way. It's been a nightmare for a long time, even before I was caught. For years now. Obviously, my mind has been filled with gruesome, horrible thoughts and ideas. A nightmare. I couldn't find any meaning in my life when I was out there. I'm sure as hell not going to find it in here. This is the grand finale of a life poorly spent, and their end result is just overwhelmingly depressing. It's just a sick, pathetic, wretched, miserable life story. That's all it is. How can it help anyone? I have no idea. That's Jeffrey Dahmer. John Wayne Gacy and Jeffrey Dahmer. It's crazy to me. And I always bring this up. Because these people had a chance if someone was there helping them. If someone saw the signs. If someone did actually care, if they had anyone, just one person, their world would have been different. Jeffrey Dahmer had people around him. They just weren't self-aware of what was going on with their son. I'm not blaming the parents because Jeffrey Dahmer was an adult, but also he had a family that could have helped. You know, he didn't have any friends. You know, he was a loner. John Wayne Gacy, on the other hand, is really hard to explain because he was smart. I mean, he was in politics, just like, you know, Ted Bundy. And he had, you know, he had a wife. And his wife, I don't know if she just pretended not to care or just didn't know, but she just made believe she didn't care. She had no idea. So you have to sit here and wonder, what makes a serial killer? What sparks a person's mind to become a serial killer? Are they born evil? And I always keep asking this question. Are they born evil? Do they become evil? Is it the circumstances around them, the environment, the people, the culture, the media? What influences a person to become a serial killer? Is it the mental health? We kind of skim over that. And that is the question that I always want people to leave these episodes every Thursday with. What if? What if just this one person would have walked into this serial killer's life, whether it was Dahmer or Richard or John Wayne Gacy? What if this one particular person could have been like, hey, man, I don't know. I don't think that this is the right path for you. You okay? Do you want to sit down about it? Do you want to go get coffee? Whatever it was. I think that maybe they would have been a different person. Maybe their life would have been different. Maybe they would have never been a serial killer. Or what if there was something out of this world spiritually that attached to them? What if they were possessed? What if a black entity, a shadow, a demon, whatever you want to call it, was really around these people? And if you look back at them and see their actions and what they have done, if you put them together, like, they all connect somehow. And it's just the way they act, their blackouts, their mental issues, their personality changes, not remembering things. You have to think about it. You know, true crime is great and all. Being a fan of true crime is amazing, but you also have to think about why. The who, what, where, and why. You know, why did these people become this way? What if it wasn't mental health? What if it wasn't trauma? What if it was just spiritual, mentally, like, they just came down evil? These are questions that I ask all the time, and I don't have an answer to it. But it's great to talk about. And a lot of people will not talk about it. So if you guys have any questions, please ask them right now. Dillon will be coming on around 7:15. We're talking about Rodney Alcala today. Rodney is one of LA's own, also from Texas. And funny enough, Richard Ramirez's neighbor in San Quentin. So we have a few things to talk about Rodney Alcala. So if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, spill them out, throw them out. I'm here for you guys. If you want to go live with me and just say how you feel or have a question right now, you have 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes. And that's right, Dill. Episode 7. We're here. We're here. Hey, man. What's up, Dillon? So, yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Also very interesting. Oh, let's see. Every time you point out signs of their behaviors, I'm like, oh, shoot. Dill, listen. You are not a serial killer. Because I bet my ass I'm going to watch. I'm going to be like, I'm watching you, sir. Any signs of serial killer, I'm like, okay. I'm like, Dillon, come here. Come hither. Not today, Satan. Not today. I got you. You have me in your life. That's all that matters. You're not going to become another Richard Ramirez. Don't worry. Really weird, by the way. The last few days, I've encountered crime scenes on my way to work. This week has been really weird. I'm not gonna lie, but I've encountered 2 dead bodies from my house to work, which is like 15 minutes. 2 dead bodies. I don't know what's going on downtown. I don't know what's going on in Koreatown. I don't know what's going on in Hollywood, but there's a lot of people that are ending up dead. Also, apparently in my building, there was an overdose yesterday. There's a lot of cops here. So guys, please don't do drugs. Please be careful who you get drugs from. I don't know what's going on, but yeah. This week it's stuff. I don't know if Mercury is in Gatorade or something, but we'll see. Hey, Carmi, your birthday's coming soon. Celebrate at the Cecil Hotel listening to Night Prowler. Just kidding. I'm going to be here listening to Night Prowler while looking at the Cecil, because every night I like to, like, shut the lights out and kind of, like, see if I can find, like, spirits around 11 if I don't fall asleep, because usually by 10 o'clock I'm sleeping. I'm a grandma. But if not, I will be definitely night prowling, listening to that, and watching if I can find some spirits in there. Okay? By the way, I've found out that a couple of people that I know worked at the Cecil, and we were talking about the Alyssa Lamb situation. And I've always thought, before Dillon comes on, I always thought that Alyssa Lamb was murdered, because the way they found her was weird. And, like, she had no clothes on and everything, but apparently she was so bloated that her clothes ripped off in the tank. She was purple and big. She was huge. She was found that way. And apparently she was very problematic in the building. And that day that she went missing, she was definitely acting really weird. And the video apparently of her kind of, like, pointing at something, and, like, there was a guard there. That foot was a guard. Like, they were trying to help her, but she wouldn't listen. They said, hey, go back to your room, go back to your room. She didn't listen, and then she went missing. Apparently, the whole story about the water being black was not true. A lot of the things in the documentary were not true. And this is where I chime in. How much in documentaries, if you think, now that I know that, how much in documentaries is true and how much is exaggerated? Because the water was never black. They said, no, we all drank from it. And it was never black. And it was at the time when she passed away, it was cold weather, so she never melted away or anything. She never decomposed. She was actually kept very well because of the weather. So there was never she was never decomposing, so the water could have never been black. So why do they exaggerate? One, why do they lie? What's the point? So now I think about it, you think about all the Ted Bundy documentaries, think about all the Richard Ramirez documentaries. Like, how much of it is true? How much of it is fake? How much of the books that you're reading is true? How much of the books that you're reading is fake? See, now this makes me think. Like, sometimes doing your own research can get you, the truth out there. And that's why when it came to the whole, I'm not going to get in there, but the whole Richard Ramirez trial, so don't get me started on it. I feel a certain way about that trial because things just don't add up for me. It was like, okay, how much is this true on the documentary? How much is this true about the book? What's going on here? Why are they hiding things? What are they hiding? What is the truth? Food for thought. And with that, Dillon, I know you know what happened, man. Come on, man. Also, before I have Dillon come on, the guys that work at the Cecil also told me that they know people in the building that have lived there since the 80s who actually knew Richard. And they said that Richard was very quiet, very to himself, very a loner, and no one had any idea he was doing anything. So that means that the whole bullshit of him walking around in his underwear behind the building was BS, because I always said it was bullshit. And Dillon's coming on now. Food for thought, guys. What's real and what's not? This is why we got True CRIMERELI up in here. Dillon! What's up, man?
What's up, man?
What's up, man? It's been a good day, man.
Oh, it sure has.
Did you hear what I just said about the whole thing with Richie and the Cecil?
Yeah.
I never believed he walked around in underwear and bloody, like he would drop. Like, I never believed that one. So, like, no one there said, like, they're like, yeah, he was just quiet. No one had any idea he was doing anything.
Who knows, man?
I was like, I'm not curious to go interview these people from there. Because they still live there, I guess.
Uh-huh.
So we'll see. Huh. Food for thought.
Pretty cool.
Food for thought. All right, so Let's get to it. Rodney Alcala. Rodney Alcala is from Texas, but he's LA. He was here. He did a lot of his murders in LA. And we'll get into it a little bit later, but he was kind of Richard Ramirez's neighbor in San Quentin, which they didn't even like each other, by the way. So I'm gonna ask you, out of all the crimes he's done, what was it that stood out for you? Which one was it?
I don't know if there's any one particular. There's this one documentary about him. You can find it on YouTube, where this cop is responding to a call that somebody saw this man put a girl in his car, a little girl, and so he got the call, followed up on it, wound up seeing the car at this house, and when he gets to the house, he knocks on the front door, no answer. Knocks on it again, no answer. Finally, someone answers, and it's Rodney, butt naked, and he's really, of course, nervous and kind of mentally distracted at that particular moment, and the cop thought it was extremely suspicious. So I believe Rodney closes the door, and the cop calls for backup, and he kicks the door down or something like that. And once he gets inside the house, he finds that little girl, and he was doing things. I don't know if she survived or not, but just that mental picture is like horrific.
Yeah, her name was Tal Shapiro. She was 8 years old, and that was his first known crime. She did survive,
right? And
he escaped. He actually went to NYU film school under a different name. So he escaped to New York for a bit. They found, I guess he had a warrant for his arrest, so they were looking for him. I think people recognized him, and they brought him back to California for that charge, for that case. But at the time, the parents of, Tally was like, they already moved. They didn't want to deal with it anymore. So they kind of shut things down. But for me, I read his crimes, and I think he was choking her with a steel bar. That's insane. That you gotta have no feelings at all for that. But what's even weirder, more scary to me, was the fact that while he was doing these crimes, because he did this to a couple of more people. Oh, by the way, guys, he was I don't know if he was pretending, but he was shooting pictures with these women. He was like luring women in with like, I'm a photographer, I'll take pictures of you. So he had thousands. When they actually arrested him, they found boxes of pictures of all these women that they still say that they could be victims. So we don't know. Maybe he did more than what he was charged for. But what's even creepier is the fact that while he was doing all these crimes, he was on a dating show. A game show, whatever. That's insane to me. The fact that he had the face to show up to a dating game show and be like, yeah. And what's even weirder is that the chick, he wins the show, and the chick that he's supposed to go on a date with changes her mind last minute because she gave him like a creepy vibe. That girl, that is the best, the best example of following your guts. Because her gut was like, no, she would have been dead if she would have went out. That is crazy. He also had pics of children. Yeah, he was definitely, he was molesting 8-year-olds. That's insane. How many was he charged for?
Charged? I don't know, but the idea is that he killed tons of people. Also, what no one's really touched base on is a lot of those photos were young, naked males. So a lot of people think that he was bisexual, and you can already add this whole other element of young males that he probably killed as well.
Yeah.
So it's nuts. His kill count, unknown, but I imagine it's really, really high.
What I was also reading really interesting was that, what was it? I was reading something here before we started this. Oh, he was hired after he was registered as a sex offender. He was hired as a typesetter for the Los Angeles Times for the coverage of the Hillside Strangler. What the fuck?
It's all one big family, man.
It's like all these criminals literally work with the cops and the newspaper, and no one like. It's just I don't understand. I don't understand. That's insane.
Hey, Splat Grand. What's up, buddy?
What's up? Yes.
Yeah, that's freaking wild.
That I didn't know that, and that was insane.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Comparisons. You said you were talking about Richard earlier.
I was just gonna say that you read my mind.
And my buddy right here, Splat Grind. He's from Texas. So both guys from Texas coming out here to LA, ultimately becoming serial killers.
Yeah.
Now they don't look identical, but they look similar. They're tall. They have an athletic build. They have the shoulder length hair. They're Hispanic. And I had a phone conversation with a particular serial killer, very famous serial killer. And he was telling me about how Richard and Rodney in San Quentin, they never touched base or wanted to become friends. There was an aversion between the two of them. Whereas Richard became friendly with other serial killers on a high-end profile like himself. With Rodney, he never made that connection. But you could read into that all kinds of things. Who knows?
Do you think there was like a competition between them two? They're like,
I don't know. Well, Rodney did his thing first. And maybe Rodney was like, this guy Richard's copying my style, man. I mean, you never know.
Yo. What I'm trying to find out is, because I'm reading about his childhood, and he was born Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Bacur in San Antonio. And, his father abandoned him. So when I'm trying, and he joined the army in 1960, and then he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, and they discharged him. So, and he had a genius level IQ. He graduated UCLA, School of Fine Arts, after his medical discharge from the army, and then later attended the New York University using the analyzed John Berger, where he studied film under Roman Polanski. Wow.
Yeah.
So, there really was it daddy issues? Because I'm like his story, from what they're showing, isn't really the same as Richard's.
No.
Nowhere near Richard's,
No, I went online and I found these really interesting photos of him in high school. And he just looks like a normal guy, man.
Yeah.
It's not like Richard, where Richard was heavily into drugs and, decline of health and all that. Rodney was, even up until they caught him, he was a very healthy looking guy. Enough so to be chosen to be on that dating game show.
Clearly. So what do you think made him do this? What could you possibly think? Do you think that, I don't think, in my opinion, Rodney was possessed by any demons. I don't think he was. Do you think he was? Hold on, I'm curious. I want to hear your opinion, because you be spot on sometimes.
Well, like I said before, when a person is a serial killer, it's an inhuman thing.
Yeah.
Being possessed doesn't necessarily mean you have to be into satanic things or dark imagery, etc. We could have politicians who look absolutely like an all-American human being, but could be possessed. Same like Ted Bundy. He was the all-American college law professor, type guy. But as a matter of fact, in his interviews, he talks about, having a entity within himself. So I think anybody that becomes a serial killer and then starts amounting a kill count, I think that through the very act of killing opens up a type of door or portal, whatever you want to call it, for spirits to be involved.
Yeah.
There are different forms of possession. I mean, like, there's a possession where, like, The Exorcist, where it totally has full possession and the person is no longer in control of themselves. But there's other forms where it's more of a lighter aspect, where they're possessed, but they're doing it through influence.
Well, the thing is, I believe once he started molesting and killing these people, he definitely opened up portals. Absolutely, 110%. But before that, like...
Oh, you mean as in contrast to Richard?
Yeah, like, what do you think
satanic
made it?
stuff?
Well, no, not satanic stuff, you know, because, like, Ted Bundy never did satanic stuff. And, you know, he claimed to have this entity, you know what I'm saying? Like, and we think that maybe he had it when he was a kid. But with Rodney, like, he didn't really have any trauma or head trauma or mental illness like, you know, like Richard would have, or to have this, you know, to do that. So what do you think, in your opinion, happened to him? Like,
Well,
do you think he was, like, just influenced?
Well, you know, like I said before with, who were we talking about the last time? Hillside Stranglers and the Toolbox Killers. We don't really know if they had any kind of sexual abuse happen to them. We can only speculate that it did. And with Rodney, I have to, even though we don't know about it, and probably was could have been an experience that maybe he kept hidden. Maybe it happened at school. Maybe it happened at work. It doesn't necessarily have to come from your parents or a family member. Yeah. There are different outside sources that can, you know, hurt a child, obviously. Yeah. But I think that serial rapists who then go on to become serial killers had some kind of sexual trauma at an early age. Absolutely.
I was going to say that. I'm like, anyone who's either a pedophile or a child molester or has there's if you look back at the statistics, they've been abused. They've been abused. What's interesting is that his dad wasn't around. So do you think that maybe he was molested by his...
Oh boy, I mean, you know, things like that only up the stakes of that being a possibility.
Yeah.
I was watching a thing on a segment. Dr. Phil actually found it very interesting. It was this little boy, and on the show, his parents came on, and they were just totally normal, middle class, suburban, you know, type family. And they were talking about how one of their boys actually came to the mother and said, you know, I have this sexual problem. And this kid was like 10. He's like, I'm going to offend on my brother and sister. And if you don't do anything to help me or prevent that, I'm going to do it. So they put locks on the doors in the house. And anyway, to make a long story short, his urge to commit those kinds of acts was so great that they had to institutionalize him. And through psychiatric help, they found out that he was abused by some person outside of the family. And after that point, he was addicted to it. And and it's a very interesting thing. It's, you know, we take substance abuse in terms of alcohol, drugs, and we can very readily agree and understand that once you partake in that and you keep it up, or if you have a trauma, you're dealing with it, you kind of keep going down that dark hole of whatever substance abuse. And we can easily see the addictive quality of those things. Yeah. But people fail to realize that sexual trauma has a very addicting component that can be instilled, especially into a young child's mind, where they, in turn, through the sexual trauma, are addicted to that sexual need. Yeah. And I think we always bring it back to Richard Ramirez. I think he is definitely that kind. And having been abused multiple times, I think, like this kid on Dr. Phil, he had an addiction to it.
Now, my thing is like, I don't know, because, like, you know, people like Rodney Alcala and like Richard Ramirez and like Ted Bundy, like these people these guys were not ugly. Like, they could have been normal. You know what I'm saying? Like, so why didn't they just have a normal life? Why didn't they just date? Like, what was... There's just so much questions about why they chose that path. Why couldn't they just decide to be normal? Why couldn't they just date a girl and get married? They could have had any girl. I mean, they weren't ugly, you know?
Well, I think the trauma creates a split in the mind somehow. And it from a normal brain to an abnormal brain. And it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And I think the reason that is because it literally changes the psychology of a human being, trauma. And
they also felt like maybe they felt like no one would understand them.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? And that thought of like, no one's going to understand why I feel this way. I just rather just be alone and do my own thing.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, Splat Grind. It's very true. Child abuse just tears your soul. You carry it always. Yes, it does. And that is why, like I said earlier today, you know, listen, trauma is trauma. And even with help, it's really hard. But you got to also understand the time period of these people, you know, and the influence. Like, if think about it. Maybe if one person could have, you know, grabbed Rodney Alcala when he was young, like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? Do you want to... Maybe he wouldn't have done the things he done. If somebody would have grabbed Richard when he was in his teens, you know, 8 years old, hey, you want to go this route? Maybe he would have never been the Night Stalker. But they didn't have anyone, at least that we know of.
Right.
You know? And that's the thing. Like, yes, they were adults. They made the decision to go that path. But if they had at least one person, maybe their path would have been a little bit different.
I agree. I totally agree. Totally agree.
Trauma and pain linger. They probably couldn't find the urge to seek help. Yeah, that's true. I think go ahead, Dylan.
Okay. Also, I think it becomes an addiction, and then, you know, there are people who are, we'll say, drug users who can't stand drugs and hate the heroin, but they're addicted. They just can't stop. And there are other people who just love it.
Yeah.
They love it. And I think like someone like Harvey Weinstein is like, this dude had all the money in the world. He had all the connections, knew all the celebrities, but why, you know, commit these crimes against these, you know, people when he had it all? And I think it's just this dark pleasure that they, you know, extract from these crimes that they commit to people. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Doesn't matter, you know, none of that matters. You have to satisfy that evil need.
And it's all, and we talked about this a couple of times, and it all comes down to power. Mm-hmm. The ability to have control. Because these people didn't have control of their lives.
That's right.
And the control they had was someone else's soul, someone else's life. And I think that's how they felt complete, was being in control of someone else's life. Being in control of the situation.
And I think that's why a lot of these serial killers abuse animals early on, because, you know, they feel dominated by their parents, and they feel like they don't probably exist at all. And so abusing animals allows them to feel superior in some kind of weird dominating way. And
I see that. Like, I always say, if someone you see hurting animals has the ability to hurt an animal, they have the ability to hurt you. I had a friend who was dating someone and they hurt their cat, literally broke their leg, and she forgave him. And I was like, if you let this man break your cat's leg and you are continuing this, just know that he will hurt you.
Oh, yeah. Because
that, to me, if you can hurt an innocent animal like that, I can't even imagine what you can do to a human being.
That's right. They slowly but surely turn off their conscience.
Yeah.
And they do it first with animals. And by the time they graduate to humans, it's very easy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Rodney offered a marijuana to a 13-year-old. Yes, I think he got in trouble for that too. He got in trouble for offering. I think he was like convicted or on parole for that.
Let me add also, when I talked to this particular serial killer, a lot of these serial killers, once they're caught, they really, I mean, they have nothing to do, and their ability to commit these crimes is, turned off. The only way they can somewhat experience that level of horror is by reading about it. So this particular serial killer had picked up a Rodney Alcala biography and was probably getting off at, the descriptions of how he was killing people. But he really enjoyed hearing how Rodney Alcala would strangle somebody to death, basically. And then he'd revive them and then strangle them again.
Yeah.
Revive them and strangle them again. So he kept murdering that one person multiple times, trying to make it last as long as he could. I think Sam Little did the same thing.
I was gonna say, isn't Sam Little like known for that too?
Yeah. And that's goodness.
But that's where power comes in. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? If you think about it, like they're playing with that person's life. That's control. Yeah. Like they're feeling like God in that moment. I think that feeling for them is everything, because they have no control of anything else in their life.
That's right.
That's where it comes down to. It's like maybe their childhood, maybe Rodney didn't have a horrible childhood like Richard did, but he felt helpless. Not having his dad, not having your dad or mom around is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
I've been very grateful that I've got to have both my parents raise me and still to this day together. But not everyone has that ability. And so some people don't take it very well,
Right.
And if you add maybe sexual abuse to it, if you add maybe, traumas, whatever, at some point, this kid who's going to grow up to be Rodney is like, fuck it. I want to control something in my life. Let me control the women. Let me control their life. There's so many things. And if they have some dark entity, some bad portal they open up with these things, like it gets bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster, big time.
Yeah.
And that's why they ultimately become, these serial killers.
But what I really want to know is, and I can't find the answer, what really happened from 1970 to the 1990s? Because, oh my gosh.
Well, like I said last week, he's another ex-Army guy.
That's right.
Another one.
That could be it, man. Maybe he saw some shit there. He was like, this is interesting.
Well, if you really want to get spiritual and colorful, you want to go there, man.
I'm always down to go there, man. Yeah.
And Vietnam and other wars. It's not necessarily that one country says to another country, you know what, we're going to go in and we're going to invade. Spiritually, the idea is that certain demons and certain forces of evil that control territories around the world are then given the green light to advance and do what they need to do in order to create the events that will ultimately lead us to Armageddon.
Yeah. So
we'll say God will say, okay, you demon over there, you're on time out for a while. And when the particular time in history is reached, that demon is off timeout and gets to do his thing. And so the idea is that when that happens, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, that these, we'll say, chained or sleeping entities are then allowed to roam upon the earth and become and influence human beings to bring about this so-called war, which is the murder of many people on either side. So in the 20th century, we have world wars. I mean, it's the greatest type of war we've ever had on this planet. And so if spiritually we're getting closer to that time of Armageddon and demons are being able to transition into this plane and act out their will on people, then you would have to say after the war is done, these demons are still floating and roaming around on the earth. And notice that a lot of these guys who went to Vietnam came back to America. You could even say, like, during COVID, if you went to China, you got COVID and you came back to America, you would then start spreading it here, wherever you landed in the United States. So if you transfer the virus into a spiritual virus, you have these guys bringing back the outpouring of demons in that particular nation and seeding them here in America.
Yeah.
So that's the spiritual answer to why those particular decades and even today are the way they are.
Yeah. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. I think I have someone. Do you answer people on the live? Yes, we do. Can I say something? Ex-reporter. I don't know what that means, guys. So, I mean, look, for Rodney to become who he became, and the thing is, I mean, he was convicted for, like, I'm looking here, but it's like 6 or 7? But from what they found, it was more than that.
Oh, yeah. And he had a lot of confessions, too, as well. They were, I think, even up till before he died. Oh, it's a very interesting story. So Rodney, later in life, as an elder man, developed Alzheimer's. Yeah. But he started losing his mind. And they had this one case that they came upon that seemed very Rodney style. In fact, they had pictures of this area where they found this body. And so one of the last attempts they had with Rodney, you can imagine it, they go into his cell and they show him pictures of this desert area. And when they showed him this picture, you could see that a light turned on in him. He couldn't particularly say anything because of his dementia, but he just started pointing to the picture, like, right here is where he did it. So that's really fascinating to me. As far as what happened to Rodney in the end, he did develop Alzheimer's and dementia. And they moved him, because he had that problem, they moved him from what was the okay, decent prison to a really run-down prison/hospital. And I saw photos of the cell he was in. It was nasty, man. It looked like an alley, to be honest. Oh, and so he spent his last moments of his life in that nasty, hellish, stony type cell. So that's pretty cool. And I think that's interesting for people.
Did he ever show remorse?
No, he didn't. He later on in life, he tried to do another appeal, and he had a whole other smaller trial for a couple of the murders. So he was definitely still trying to get off.
Wow. Yeah. What's mind-blowing to me is knowing that Richard Ramirez and Rodney Alcala were neighbors and they did not get along. That would have been like, I can imagine just being in the courtyard and like Richard sitting in his like on the table, and here comes Rodney, and Richard's just like, all right, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna head out now. Bye.
Well, apparently that one serial killer I was talking to said that Rodney had like part Native American in him somewhere, and San Quentin, he would jog when it was his yard time. He would just jog mile after mile after mile after mile. Wow. And that one particular serial killer thought that maybe he was trying to escape. if he did escape, he could just, keep running forever, basically, and
Yeah.
not get caught, like training for it or something. But yeah.
Yeah, they didn't get along. That's what me and Dillon were just saying right now. Someone said, really? They didn't get along? No, they didn't. And they're from Texas. They came to LA. They looked very similar.
Right.
They did a lot of
Also,
very similar. So
also, Rodney felt very superior to the rest of the serial killers. He felt they were all below him, that he had an intellectual, artistic savvy that none of them had. Whereas, Richard Ramirez was just this, I'm just speculating now, but, this dirty guy, homeless, killing people out here, where Rodney thought, almost Hannibal Lecter style, where he's more sophisticated because of his involvement in art and Roman Polanski and being a photographer.
He's so sophisticated that he blew his cover at the fucking dating game show.
Exactly. So, but hey, that was his attitude in San Quentin, and he's kind of a loner.
Someone said, Chad, who's Richie? Richie is the nickname for Richard Ramirez, Dillon and I stalker, who was also in jail at the time that Rodney Alcala went to jail.
That's right.
So, yeah. Guys, do you have any questions about Rodney? You can ask me or Dillon. Bring it up.
Hey, also, Carm, what if next week we just have a surprise serial killer, so we don't tell them who they are? They just have to show up and find out.
I like surprises. Also, I think it's cool because it's my birthday right after that, so we should do that.
There you go.
Someone said, hey, guys, can't stay, but I'm once again voting for the Golden State Killer. Don't worry. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. We're going to bring him in here. But if we talk about Golden State Killer, I have things to say. Okay? Don't get me started on the Golden State Killer. Oh, my goodness. So Rodney, Richard, and the Toolbox Killer were all in the same place. Yes, they were.
Yeah.
San Quentin haunted jail.
Yeah, for sure. I think San Quentin prison housed the most notorious killers of the 70s and 80s than any prison.
If Ted Bundy would have landed in California, he probably would have ended up in San Quentin. Can you imagine having Ted Bundy, Richard Ramirez, Rodney Alcala, Toolbox Killer?
There's speculation Bundy did dip into California, Northern California, to do some killings. I was reading this whole thing about it, that there were a couple girls killed in North California that they never found who it was, but they believe it was Ted Bundy.
Coming down, research that.
Yeah, coming down, I think, from Seattle, dipping into California, going down to Colorado. Crazy, huh?
Could you have That's crazy. So we could do a ghost box session. I'm always down for ghost box sessions, okay? I will beat Zach Baggins at his game. Hey, yo, Demons, it's your girl. Carm, what you need? Dillon would be like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. San Quentin's death row must have been terrifying. Well, there is a podcast. I don't know if they're still doing it, Dillon, but the one with the guy from there's a person in jail. They are
Death Row Diaries.
Death Row Diaries. So it's a prisoner that has a podcast, and they talk about how creepy it is in San Quentin. How it's been haunted since day one. It's built on an Indian burial ground, so it's like, to this day. To this day, they see things there.
Yeah. Interesting thing is, for those people who aren't from California, who wonder about San Quentin, right now they're totally disbanding and breaking down death row. So a lot of the infamous serial killers of 70s and 80s they're being relocated to other prisons here in California. So if Richard was still alive, they'd actually be moving him to another prison out here in California, which is kind of crazy to think.
Yeah. Slightly off topic, but either Gil Carrillo or Frank Sano said Richard and Bundy wrote. I heard that Richie did write to Ted Bundy, and that Ted Bundy had responded to Rich or something in the veins of like, "I'll see you in hell." So I'm sure they've connected. I'm sure they're talking in hell. Yes. I'm sure they're buddies.
Absolutely.
But yes, they did talk.
Yeah, I mean, Richard was a big fan of true crime and serial killers.
Yeah, he was.
He enjoyed it.
He was.
Sure, right? I mean, most of them are. Most of them are.
And it's crazy because I was reading an article and they were saying the reason why a lot of people like true crime is because people who like it have have had severe trauma in their life, and it's a way of soothing. And I sat there and I said, damn, what does that mean for me, bruh? Damn. I don't know what to tell you guys. Chucky's had some trauma in her life. That's why I'm here. We're trying to puzzle it out.
Well, you know, the way I see it is, you know, you have people who are involved in crime and, you know, in the law system, and they're not trying to do evil. They're there to understand and help make a better place. I think that's what we're doing too.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can't report into our office, you know, at the local police stations, but we're doing the best we can here with the podcast, trying to give an awareness and insight to these.
The awareness. Okay, so with Rodney, what's the awareness? It's hard because with Rodney, like, there wasn't really anything. I would say just if you see, you know, animal hurting, or if you see a kid that's going through some like family issues with parents, or if you see them they're not having their mom or their dad, just help them out, kind of be there for them. These kind of people have like little details about them that kind of stand out. So you wouldn't be, I feel like a normal person would be like, something ain't right here.
Yeah.
You know, so you would know. So just keep an eye out for a friend or for a family member that you kind of like, it's just not normal, you know?
Yeah, and I think somebody, like you said earlier, in particular, Rodney, I mean, he was a fairly decent-looking guy. I mean, he had an artistic talent. He was going to UCLA. He was going to New York to study film under a very popular director. And he threw it away. He threw it away for this sick compulsion that he had.
That desire that will be crushed by them if they did not.
That's right. Yeah, this evil.
Yeah.
And I would say that anybody out there, even at your level, whatever evil resides inside of you, it's really not worth it to pursue. It doesn't add anything to your life, even though momentarily, if you're doing evil, whatever it may be, it seems very, there's some kind of satisfaction from it that you derive. I get that. But in the big picture, it just never adds up, and you'll always find yourself in a worse position than you ever were. So that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, true. Dill, no, I don't. 2, don't put my business out there like that. And 3, mind your business. Damn. Also, what Dillon was saying was on point.
Yeah, I mean, evil, to whatever level we experience it in our lives, and only each person knows what it is. It's best in this life to distance yourself from that thing. It's definitely not going to help you.
Well, as I keep saying it, you know, we're in a world. I mean, back in the day, you would think of it like this is what I believe in. In the 1970s and through the 1990s, there's like an explosion of new things. You know,
that's right.
Like a lot of satanic panic, the music, the fashion, everything was just starting to change. It was something different. So a lot of people felt like they had to rebel. And what's really crazy is that we're in the middle of that now again. I think that things are changing, things like technology and fashion and music and media and culture. And what happened then, like, you can see how it helped, but also now, like, it affects social media. I always keep saying it. Social media affects mental health.
Oh, yeah.
It does a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a kid out there going to be a Rodney or going to be a Richard or going to be a John Wayne Gacy, because I believe now it's 10 times worse than it was in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, plus, a lot of these guys, these serial killers, they're deceived. They think it's power, but it's not power.
Yeah.
Being a serial killer, being evil, doing crime, that's not being powerful. That's being weak. That's not having what it takes to exist in this real world and own up and be responsible and be a decent human being. That's strength. Being evil and being a serial killer, that's a coward's way out. And it's nothing to emulate or look up to at all.
Well, for Dill, it's like, I don't know why back then people weren't aware of mental illness. It wasn't a thing. And especially from Hispanic culture, Hispanic family, whatever problems you had, you deal with it and you move on. Therapy wasn't a thing. Even to this day, Hispanic parents don't believe in therapy. They think that that's insane. You handle your business and that's it,
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it wasn't a thing. It wasn't. There's an explosion of it now because of all the technology and all the media that's been out, all the porn that's out. That's the most dangerous thing. You'd be surprised how that affects.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yeah. I have some crazy random people on my line right now. I'm kind of pointing them out because it sounds very familiar to people who like to bully fucking people online. I'm gonna call you out. Then it's like, oh, Miss McMahon coming on.
Well, what I step into here? What?
That's right. Clearly. I think that enlarged people are mostly good and do good. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, guys, you got 2 minutes. Any questions? Any questions for us? If not, next week, surprise, we don't know. I don't even know who we're talking about. So, but you guys let me know. Any questions? If not, it was good episode. Good talking to you guys. Next week is a surprise. We'll celebrate my birthday at the same damn time. I love y'all. Rock on. Bye.